right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the December 6th meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. First on our agenda is to approve the minutes for this evening. However, I'd like to make a slight suggestion for an adjustment. I would propose and make a motion that we, sorry, got ahead of myself. First to approve the minutes for the November 22nd meeting. Brendan, second. Julie, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Back to the agenda. I would propose that we move the West School PTC Media Center donation ahead of reports and recognition, if everyone's okay with that, just so Ms. Gold can move on before we get into the rest of our presentations.
Can I just ask, are we approving the minutes for the 29th meeting too? We have them here.
We have them. We should for the workshop.
Oh, the workshop.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good, we can. Okay. So two
changes.
Two changes.
Yeah.
We'll go back and approve those minutes after. Is there a motion for those two changes? Dan, second. Phil, all in favor?
Is that for the 29th?
The workshop.
So I didn't catch this, but I have,
This is just to amend the agenda, and then we have changes to the
So we can
minutes.
approve it,
oh, right.
Yeah.
to approve the workshop
We got to
agenda.
amend the agenda.
Also move amended for the approval.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. So let's approve the agenda and then go back to the minutes. So motion to approve the amended agenda. Brendan, second. Penny, all in favor? All right, thank you. And now to approve the minutes for the November 29th workshop. Is there a motion? Julie, second. Dan, all in favor? Okay, and Penny abstains.
And me.
And Brent.
And Brendan,
Oh,
that's right.
yeah.
Yep. Thanks. Okay. Next is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Is there anyone wishing to address the board this evening? Okay. Just please come to the microphone at the podium and you can just state your name, please.
Matthew Campbell. To my knowledge, the BOE hasn't issued a vaccine mandate in New Canaan schools. That is why I was dismayed to learn there are bureaucrats who are trying to create backdoor mandates by arbitrarily forcing students to be vaccinated in order to fully participate in the NCHS experience. I say arbitrarily because I sincerely hope they aren't trying to create a class system among students, especially considering the correlation between youth vaccination and race and religion. Sadly, the recent guidelines for participation in NCTV do just that. Certainly, a news anchor or camera person spends less time unmasked than the thousands of students eating lunch in the cafeteria. This simply makes no sense and it's discriminatory. Vaccination is an individual choice, especially a COVID vaccine for children. Anticipating some condescending remarks about science, I pulled the latest data from the CDC website posted November 22nd. COVID cases among vaccinated 12 to 17-year-olds is 47.6 per 100,000. COVID deaths among 12 to 17-year-olds is, I quote, not shown due to low numbers. The next group up, 18 to 29-year-olds, deaths are 0.00 per 100,000 and 0.19 per 100,000 for the unvaccinated. What about our teachers? Yes, it increases with age, but it's still 0.39 per 100,000 vaccinated age 50 to 64. The data is clear. That is why most European countries decided against COVID mandates for youth. This is an arbitrary mandate and it's discriminatory. Frankly, it shows a lack of leadership. A good executive and a good board will gather input and make decisions based on facts and not outsource these decisions to an unelected bureaucrat looking to extend their 15 minutes of relevancy. We need to do better.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, moving on. We'll move to our West School PTC donation. I'll go ahead and see if there's a motion to accept the donation of $5,964.21 from the West School PTC for the Share a Book campaign in the Library Media Center. Brendan, second. Erica, discussion?
Sure. So I'll just share briefly, and we're fortunate to have Megan here if there are any questions. Jen may come if she's nearby. But this came to us, the way our process works is that donations at $5,000 and above come to the full board for approval. The idea comes from Patrick Murrin, who is our library media specialist over there at West. And as we take a look at the titles, they really are primary titles, for our students to be able to circulate through the library. I don't think there's much more than that. I think that, Patrick over there at West continues to look for creative ways to enhance literacy and to promote student reading in the school, and I think this is another one of those.
I just
Brendan?
want to get on the record that if Patrick Murrin says it's the right thing to do, it must be the right thing to do.
Agreed.
Other comments, questions? All right, I'd just like to add a big thank you. I know the PTCs continue to work really hard on behalf of our students to raise money, and I know the Share a Book is always a really big success and fills our library with titles for our kids, so thank you for all of your hard work. Okay, with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Now you get home for your daughter's birthday.
So back to reports and recognitions. Tonight, we have Mr. Egan and the New Canaan High School team here tonight to present an update on student assessments.
And as they are setting up, just a quick note, as you recall, our last Board of Ed meeting, Dr. Carenti spoke about assessments for our really K through 8. So it is a different system and different layers of assessments that occur at our secondary level, including SAT and AP and ACT and lots of acronyms that you're welcome to stop us at any time, and we'll spell them. We'll spell them out for you. But Bill now has come to talk about assessments for our students in grades 9 through 12. Mr. Egan, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Letzi. And thank you to all of you on the Board of Ed. For those of you that are new, welcome. I'm thrilled to be the New Canaan High School principal. It truly is an honor. I think we have the best students in the state of Connecticut, and we have an awesome community, and we have the best staff as well. So it's really a source of pride for me. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Before I get started, I'd like to get, thanks. Chris is going to correct me for myself on the slides. So let me start with some introductions. We have our administrative team here. This is Christy Carrero, one of our assistant principals here at the high school. Ari Rothman, another one of our assistant principals here at the high school. We have Kevin Ryan, who's our special administrator here at the high school, and Larry Sullivan, who's the other assistant principal here at the high school. We also have our K-12 curriculum leaders. You met the K-8 leaders last week or 2 weeks ago, but here tonight, or at least many of them are here tonight. Evan Remley, if they want to wave their hand that they're here. Our English Language Arts head, Becky Pavia, our math head. Bob Stevenson, our social studies head, he could not be here this evening. Michael LeDuc, our science chair at the high school. Jim Zamorano also couldn't be here this evening. He's our CTE head. Michelle Ludala in the back is our ICT head, and she also helped me with this presentation because generally this presentation is a whole bunch of charts and a lot of words, and ultimately I said, can we tell a story through what we're trying to do? So she helped me with that this evening. I think it's an excellent presentation. If you don't like it, we have someone to blame, but ultimately she helped me with that presentation. Cindy Rivera is our guidance chair. Lizette D'Amico is world language. She's K-12. Jay Egan is PE and health, K-12. But AJ Albano is here representing PE and health. Matt Salvestrini is our digital learning, K-12. Alan Sneath is our VPA, K-12. I think I have everybody. Oh, Belinda Meyer is also here. She is a K-8, but she's helped us throughout the years at the high school as well. Next up is our philosophy of assessment. I'm not going to go through this. I know Dr. Carenti did at the last presentation, but I wanted to make sure that we include it here as well. Our mission at the high school is to prepare all students to meet the challenges of living in an increasingly global and diverse society. You know, we partner with our parents and community, and we strive to inspire students in the habits of mind and character that will make them lifelong learners. You know, RAMS is our motto: responsible, accountable, motivated, and strong. We have a vision where we want to create a school with a sense of community where parents want to send their children, students want to learn and enjoy being part of the NCHS community. New Canaan High School will be a place where employees feel respected, valued, and love coming to work to always do what's in the best interest of students. You know, I'd be remiss before we get started if I didn't kind of reflect on the past year. You know, the presentation is a result of a year of hard work by talented teachers and staff who care deeply for the well-being of their students, a community of parents who are continually want to make the school better for their kids, and truly the best students in the state of Connecticut. They're smart, talented, kind, and most importantly, good people. We're incredibly proud of our school community, and while tonight we highlight scores, and they're awesome, we are most proud of their love for New Canaan High School. It truly is a special place, their commitment to learning and drive to make the world a better place. So that being said, let's get started on our scores. You know, we really want to start with our next generation science standards. I believe, although I wasn't at the presentation, I did watch it. That's where Dr. Correnti left off the other day. You know, we've really only had 2 years of scores, so not a great data set of scores to reflect upon, but we are moving in the right direction. Flip to the next one. You know, we've seen our level 4 increase by 9%. Our level 3 scores stayed flat at about 50% of our kids, and our level 2 and level 1s both decreased, meaning that our scores got better in the last 2 years. You know, that's a reflection of the work of us embedding in NGSS standards into the high school, but really the work through the elementary and middle schools as well. And we'll continue to see that increase as we embed you know, our standards in the coming years. There's going to be a deeper presentation on the 20th about the next generation science standards, so you'll get into that a lot deeper there. But first, I thought we'd start with the end and really take a look at our college statistics for our students who left us, I guess, last year. So we had 3,190 transcripts to 376 colleges for 367 students. That's about 9 transcripts a student, if my math is correct. 96% of our students attend 4-year colleges. 88% attend what we consider to be competitive colleges, what Barron's puts out as competitive colleges. Very competitive, 11%, highly competitive, 42%, and most competitive, 35%. We have 8 students attending international schools, and 4 students are attending 2-year colleges from last year. Every student, 100% of our students, had a plan as they left New Canaan High School. It's one thing Mrs. Rivera is extremely proud of. And last year was a unique year. 40% of our students did not submit SAT or ACT scores to schools that they attended. Well, we just really started that, so normally it's almost none, right? Unless they're universities that do not take SATs and ACTs. Yeah. Yeah.
Most universities are still score optional this year, so
Yeah.
we don't know yet this year, but in the past, maybe 5%,
Yeah.
10% didn't send scores.
Yeah. Now, we anticipate we'll see more this year, just because last year there were students who had only one test they could take, you know, just the nature of the way it worked. You know, for our college level courses, we offer a wide variety of college level courses here at the high school: advanced placement, early college experience through UConn, Project Lead the Way through UNH, and we have classes offered at Norwalk Community College. Teachers are trained to be able to teach all of those courses. In total, we have 303 students taking other college options here at the high school. That includes all those courses for ECE at the top, and the couple of courses for Norwalk Community College, and our intro engineering courses for Project Lead the Way. In total, 79% of our seniors take a college level course. That's pretty impressive. Now, I'd like to be 100%, but we have 79% of our students take college level courses. That's pretty amazing. You know, our AP classes, we have a wide berth of AP classes we offer here. They're designed to give an intro to college level class while still in high school. They test at the end of the year. The score range is a 1 through 5. The goal is really getting a 3 or better. That really indicates that what the AP says, those students could get a 75 or better on a college level course. We offer 28 different AP courses here at the high school. They're designed to demonstrate a passion, that kids can go into passions of theirs. Generally, they're the most rigorous courses we have available. Last year, they were tested either in person, or in some cases, they had an option to take the test on a computer at home. And things to consider, we were in person last year, we were hybrid last year, we were remote last year. So it was a wide variety of classroom options for students throughout the year. You know, as I said, we've increased our number of AP courses throughout the years. Back in 2011, there were only 18 AP courses offered. Now, we have 28. So we're continually looking to expand where possible for our program to best meet our needs of our students. Like I said, there's a wide berth of AP courses. I won't go through all of them, but this year there are 28 different AP courses for our students. And again, I'd like to thank Michelle. The graphics are far better than me listing 28 different courses there. As far as our AP and honors participation, you know, we take a look at our college level courses. We had 79% of our students, but just looking at AP and honors, we had 72% of our students have taken at least one AP class in the senior class, and 9.2% have taken one or more honors but no AP, for a total of 81.2% of our kids have taken either an AP class or honors courses here at the high school. That's pretty impressive. We just have a chart of it on the next page. Now, this next section I'm going to go into a little detail on because, first of all, it's unbelievably impressive about the depth and quality of our student body here at the high school, but this gets a little bit confusing as well. So there are different characteristics of AP scholars. So this is last year's senior class. So what makes an AP scholar? So just an AP scholar, you need to get a 3 or higher on 3 or more AP courses. That's to become an AP scholar. To be an AP scholar with honor, it's a 3.25 average on all exams, 3 or higher on 4 or more exams. An AP scholar with distinction, a 3.5 average on all exams, 3 or higher on 5 or more exams. And a national AP scholar, that's a 4 average on all exams, a 4 or more on 8 or more exams. So that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to swallow as you hear it, but we had 55 students who were just AP scholars here at the high school, 49 who were AP scholars with honors, 114 who were AP scholars with distinction, and another 40, amazingly, that are AP scholars, national AP scholars. That to me blows me away. So we have that many students taking that many rigorous courses and doing that well on them is unbelievable. It really is awesome. And it's a testament to our students who work so hard, also our families who promote academics here at the high school. Interestingly, you take a look at that, you put it all together, we have almost 60% of our kids who are AP scholars. 60% of our kids take 3 or more AP exams and get a 3 or better on them. That's unbelievable. It really is just unbelievable. Almost 60%. It's actually 58%. So if we take a look now at these scholars too, we've increased generally, consistently since 2014 the number of AP scholars in the building up to today. Last year was a slight dip, not unexpected with a couple of things, the pandemic being the biggest driver in that. But again, not much, and statistically not really relevant. We're still kind of increasing. If you take a look at the next slide, the percentage of AP scholars, all of those bars in every category are moving in the right direction. We have kids taking a wide variety of classes, challenging themselves to be the best they can be academically. You know, certainly last year you'll see a COVID-19 little marker on all of that. You know, I just did that to say if there was a dip, there was obviously a reason for a little bit of a dip. But still really, really impressive, the level of scores that our kids were able to produce while being in the building half the time for much of the year. So if we take a look at the 5-year history of the AP exam, there's really a lot to be proud of here. You know, 2020 and 2021 were really COVID-affected years. And you might say to yourself, well, there was a dip from 20 to 21 in some of these cases. Really kind of going back to 2019 was probably a better comparison point, and again, last year, we were affected by COVID. So basically, the reason I said that was 2020, our students took AP tests, but they only took them for, correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, an hour on the computer at home, correct, in 2020?
In 2020.
Yeah. So it was a different test than they did last year. They took the full test last year, and again, some of them may have been in person, some of them might have been at home on a computer, so it was still affected, but the 2020 tests were different than last year's test, 2021, and obviously before that in 2019. Yet we still did very, very well on these tests. You know, in truth, before I kind of go through that, you'll notice there's some dips from 2019 to last year. In some cases, we improved. You know, so we were kind of working with department chairs and saying, what's the interesting piece about this? What questions can we kind of ascertain from taking a look at why in some courses, I think like economics is one that stands out to me, where our students, actually more students took the test and actually did better in a COVID year, which is, you know, it's interesting. We had some other areas that seemed to dip. And for many of them, like if you took a look at AP Psych or AP Environmental, those are traditionally like first-time AP tests for many students. And during a COVID year, a year where really that your emotional well-being was on the cusp of, on the forefront for everyone, you can kind of see we had some kids who didn't, they took the test but didn't necessarily seemingly, may not have given their best effort for a variety of reasons. So some of that transferred into some scores too. While I won't go through every score, there's a lot to be proud of there. You know, we have increased the number of AP tests in the building from, if I went back to 2011, you know, it was probably close to half of that, to where we're consistently in high numbers of students taking the test in the building. And our kids still do very, very well. Last year, 82% of all the tests got a 3 or better. And really what the College Board has for their indicator, we're at 86% because you kind of eliminate students who might have gotten a 3 on one test, but maybe a 1 on a different one. So 86% of our students actually is what the College Board takes a look at. Now that's a dip again, as I said, from the 89% in 2020, but a slighter dip from the 87% in 2019. So that's kind of the marker we look at. And you would expect a little bit of a dip. You know, our kids were not, they were remote half the time, not half the time, they were hybrid half the time last year. We went to 3/4 for a while to try and get more kids to come to class. And then we finally came in full time back in March. But there was a definitely strain on the environment last year, so you would expect a little bit of a dip. How do we do though? In every department area, really, really very well. I mean, generally in every subject area, 85 to 95% of our kids get a 3 or better, traditionally every year on their AP tests. In context of our student population, we've really grown these tests over the years. You know, total enrollment in AP classes, now again, it's not total enrollment in the building, it's in AP classes, so they may be dually enrolled, is that has grown. But a more statistically reliable indicator of growth is the next slide, which kind of takes a look at the percentage of enrollment in context of our student population. So when you look at it that way, you could say there was a slight, in total enrollment, you could say there was a slight dip going into last year, but not really when it's indicative of the class. Like that senior class that left was really, really big. This senior class is much smaller. That means it's flattened out and our growth is about the same. So we've done very, very well in getting kids to take AP classes and continue to do well in these AP classes. Another way to take a look at that, you know, just the total number of tests and unique test takers. You know, back in 2015, there was only 278 unique test takers. This year, there's a possibility of 493. We'll see if all, when it comes down to it, take the test, but 487 last year. So that's another area that kind of indicates we're getting more kids to take these tests, and they continue to do really well in these classes. Again, another way to look at this is they take a look at the percentage of 10th through 12th graders who take the AP tests in your school, and we continue to grow in that area. You know, back in 2015, there were only 40%, dipped to 37%, but now we're up generally fairly consistently, around 50% of our 10th through 12th graders are enrolled and take AP tests and do, again, quite well. The way the College Board kind of helps to rank us is take a look at seniors who are earning a 3 or better. You know, back in 2010, that was only about 43.9%. Now, we're consistently above 60%, which is really where we want to be. You know, generally, the last 3 out of 4 years, we've been there, and, you know, we're really proud of that as well. As I transition now, I guess, can I transition to SAT, or you guys want to ask any questions about AP at this point?
We keep going, maybe?
Keep going?
Yeah,
We're good?
that's a
All right.
Question.
We'll go on. The SAT. There are 2 sections, math and evidence-based reading and writing. Each section scored 200 to 800. Students in grade, as Dr. Correnti talked about last time, students in grades 11 must take the Connecticut SAT. The Connecticut SAT is aligned to our Connecticut core standards. So we take a look, I always publish our gender breakdown. It's a question that happens every year, so we figured we'd highlight it, and we would take a look at it and say, well, how statistically, I don't know the word I'm looking for, relevant is that? You know, ultimately, generally, our boys have done better in math. The girls have done better in language arts. I've highlighted the scores in which they did. But if you turn to the next slide, you know, really how much of a percentage is that? You know, traditionally the girls are about 1.52% stronger than the boys in English, and the boys are about 2.1% stronger than the girls in math. So it's not a huge difference. You know, we do talk about it. We want to, you know, take steps to kind of take a look at that, but the difference is not that great. How do we do? Well, we do really, really well. In our evidence-based reading and writing, we were second in the DIRG. I must point out that Weston, which finished ahead of us, they only had about 60 kids take the test. So we had a lot more kids taking the test, and we'll take a look and see how we did. We were number 1 in math. We ended up with a 608 average. Again, a lot of these schools are very close. You know, statistically, there's not that much deviation. However, we are number 2, and like I said, we had a lot more kids taking that test as well in our evidence-based reading and writing. And for math, we were first, which is awesome. Well, one thing I want to point out, if you take a look at those state averages, we had a state average of 507 for evidence-based reading and writing, and our special ed students basically scored 521. So that means for every other high school, the entire population is scoring a 507. Our special ed population is scoring above that. It's a testament to our kids, our community, to help push our kids to be the best they can possibly be. And again, for math, our special ed students outpaced the state average for all kids in math as well. You know, generally you want 95% of our population to take these tests. You know, during a pandemic, we're really proud of the fact that we got 88% of our total students and 84% of our special education students to be able to take our test. I know they were higher than some other districts, and I think that's really awesome. We'd love it to be 95%. Generally, Mr. Sullivan runs that, and every year he's proud that we do get to 95%. But these are great numbers in the heart of a pandemic to be able to get that many students to take the test. You know, I'll briefly kind of review the ACT. You know, the ACT, some students who want subject-specific tests and to prefer the ACT. In 2017 was really the height, at least since I've been here, of the ACT. That was when Connecticut transitioned to the Connecticut SAT. So you'll notice some numbers as I kind of go through this, and I won't spend too much time on the ACT, but you'll notice 2017 was the year of the most kids, I guess, taking the ACT. But we continue to do really, really well on all markers of performance. And I kind of have the numbers here on the next slide. You know, in Connecticut in 2000 SAT, there were 12,834 students who took the ACT. In New Canaan, 216. And you can see the trend nationally too, almost 1 million less students over the last 4 years. That seemed to be the marker for students to take the ACT, was when there was a lot of transition to having the state test transition to, in most states, the SAT. But that has dwindled down to last year, where 4,000 students took the ACT, and only 112 here in New Canaan as well. How do we do on it? Really well. I won't go over the scores, but we outpace the state and nationally in every area, and our composite scores do as well. You know, we, again, continue to increase generally each year. However, again, what does that mean? We have less kids taking it. It's in some ways, it's, you know, it's an interesting look, but we do really well. It's just another sample of where we do well. At this point, we could ask questions if you'd like, or we can get into our next steps for continuous improvement. Again, totally up to you. Keep going? Yeah. Very good. At this point, I'll ask, Evan's gonna get us started. And kind of, we'll have the departments come up and really speak to a little bit about how we're gonna continue to improve in every area. So, Evan, this is yours. She's gonna help you.
Oh, okay, cool, thanks. Good evening, I'm Evan Remley, I'm the English Department Chair. So just a couple of things to get us started here. Let's try, okay, so I want to bring up the overall slides here. Okay,
That's not gonna work. Go
that's
back.
not gonna work, these are all
Yeah,
notes, huh?
You're speaking to the graphic, not the slide.
I know, it's a little crazy. All right, now, I wasn't ready for this. You know, Monday Night Football starts in 45 minutes. We could just call the whole thing off, I'm just saying, but, all right. So after, I tried. After a year and a half of incredible disruption, evidence-based reading and writing scores have remained stable. I've did a quick analysis, subscores in all categories with evidence-based reading and writing, and they compare favorably with pre-pandemic assessment numbers. The subcategories are command of evidence, words in context, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. So actually those all, while they're kind of a broad index of a 0 through 15 composite score, that's sort of an instructional report for educators, they actually match up identically with the last 2 years. So actually in a 3-year trend, they've actually remained stable, which is pretty amazing considering just how disrupted everything was for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now of education. So next steps beyond that are to continue to develop our resources and instructional techniques and language usage that were developed and being utilized by department members. This is sort of the question when you heard about standard English conventions. What does grammar instruction look like? We were trying to do more in context things associated with the writing process, and we devised some steps and some smaller sort of programs to be used in classrooms, and then March 2020 hit, and a lot of things got put on hold, so that didn't quite get deployed the way we wanted to. So one of our goals is to sort of go back to that and kind of ramp that up as we get back to more conventional classroom instruction. And the other piece, too, is continue to develop our instructional and assessment models aligned with mastery-based portfolio assessment, which has an emphasis on reflection and critical thinking. And then the last part is to improve the use of reflective writing across our disciplines, which is associated with this mastery-based portfolio assessment in a way to also kind of ensure metacognition. And I think that's it for that one. Am I still up? Excellent. All right. So I'll now go into some order. That was with evidence-based reading and writing. So moving forward to English, specific to the subject area, our goals are to continue to adjust and deploy curricular resources around evidence-based reading and writing through a variety of venues, our PLCs, professional conferences, curricular enrichment activities in alignment with the block schedule. So we switched to block last year, as you're well aware. It was actually our first year. It was a strange year in a lot of levels, and that required some instructional shifts. The big thing probably, just to kind of give like a broad sense of it, was pacing and how we approach instruction, and that units were taking a lot longer than we had anticipated. So one of the big changes this year that we're trying to work through is how to pace in an effective way to cover this components of our writing curriculum that we would like to. So our goal is one of our goals is to work back through that and kind of dive back into that work. All right. And then our next step, revise and adjust certain assured experiences, our 9th and 10th grade writing portfolios to align with mastery-based portfolio assessment. These are pre-existing assessment structures, but as we kind of considered that broader view of the high school, we wanted to figure out how those pieces could fit in within that context. And then one of our other goals is to redeploy some of our benchmarks in reading and writing to reinforce best practices across disciplines and guide support for all learners. These benchmarks are sort of universal assessments. We've traditionally done them at various points in time throughout the year in 9th and 10th grade, and we had to put those on hold last year because of a pandemic. And the logistics of doing such a thing became so problematic that we had to be pretty creative in how we were thinking about it. So one of our goals this year is redeploying them. We just did one in social studies for writing across the disciplines. And the way these also work is they help guide some of our targeted interventions, which is Writing Center and Reading Center, to support all learners. And then along that thread, one of the other steps too is to continue to utilize our support systems, Writing Center and Reading Center, which supply targeted interventions. I just sort of covered that. But that was difficult. We lost Writing Center last year to sort of reduce class sizes to go with sort of the COVID parameters regarding class size. But we were able to reintroduce it this year and utilize it as a resource to continue to help all learners, but also we assign students there that need targeted help in writing. And then similarly, we have the Reading Center, which is a targeted program with our reading specialists at the high school. I think that's it. All right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not Bob Stevenson, but I'm speaking on his behalf today. So, are you going to do it? I can. Okay, I can do it. Okay, good. So the first thing that that we wanted to do in social studies is really to do some adjusting of the teaching assignments for AP tests or AP courses, and to also continue to provide College Board training to AP teachers as needed. The next thing we want to do is to continue to shift back to pre-pandemic instructional and assessment practices, where they align with best practices for AP courses, which was definitely a challenge last year when we were, at least for part of the year when we were hybrid. And we want to revise and adjust the assured experiences, as Evan just said, including the 10th grade writing benchmark and junior research paper to align with mastery-based portfolio assessments. And this is consistent with what Evan just said, because these are, in both cases, are really sort of joint between the two departments. Redeployed benchmarks and formative assessments in evidence-based writing assessment, or writing to reinforce best practices across disciplines. So that's for the 10th grade writing benchmark. And we are going to move on to, I believe, math.
Hi, I'm Becky Pavia. I'm the math department chair. So for math, just thinking about coming back from the pandemic and trying to help all students to meet their potential that they had before this disruption to their education process, we really focused on teacher collaboration and having teachers work in professional learning communities, or PLCs, and that allowed conversations around deeper instruction. Assessment was part of that, and finding ways to help students display their knowledge. Testing was a little funky with the pandemic. And this also allowed for conversations around what we call vertical and horizontal alignment. So students coming up from the middle school had gaps. We really tried to prioritize standards to focus on those that were most important that students needed for future math classes, success on the SAT and some of those future tests, and things they would need, just in life and career-related topics. Sorry, I'm not flipping. Throughout the year, teachers utilized what we call CFAs, or common formative assessments. So these were assessments that teachers gave across subject areas. So all of Algebra 1 might give the same assessment, and what that did, they were short snippets, and it allowed teachers to quickly identify things that students were struggling with in the moment throughout the course of the unit, so that they could identify and correct those some of those shortcomings that we found, especially with COVID and hybrid learning. It also allowed differentiation on the other ends, where students who maybe have already mastered a topic, could be extended, and their learning could be deepened. We also re-implemented Math Center as an intervention for struggling learners, which has been very helpful to our most vulnerable population this year. Keep going. I think it was. So for this year, we'll also continue to have teachers work in professional learning communities to collaborate. And obviously with the implementation of the block schedule this year, that's changed our instruction practices slightly. So just, getting teachers more comfortable with utilizing that 90 minutes more effectively to help students really fully understand at a deeper level everything that we're trying to get them to master.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Leduc. I'm the chair of the science department at the high school. All right, we got the slide. So one of our big focuses going forward will be to continue our collaboration both across our department and within our course-specific teams going forward. A lot of that collaboration is going to be focused on student-centered learning, which is a focus for the whole high school, and also with the next generation science standards. And I know you're excited to hear more about the next generation science standards, so on December 20th, save the date. I'll see you all here along with Melinda. So the district goals related to the next generation science standards are specific to our different course teams. Each course team is in a slightly different place along this progression as we've phased the standards up from K-12, from K-8, something Melinda and Jill have been working on, and the whole school system has been working on for many years now. So again, we'll give more specifics on the 20th related to some of those specific course team transitions. Another school goal that science is working with other departments on as well is the mastery-based diploma. And so we'll be developing instructional and assessment models that align with the mastery-based diploma, and that will require a lot of collaboration around the school as well. We'll also be engaging in vertical planning with the K-8 world. There we go. As we know, and as we've heard many times tonight, there are some gaps in understanding and in learning from as a result of the pandemic. And so we'll continue to work with our K-8 team to plan for those gaps that we know are there, ones that we made curricular decisions to prioritize certain standards. But also to assess students and see where there might be additional gaps and tailor our instruction accordingly. And that's it.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ari Rothman. I have the pleasure of working with the Career and Technical Education Department. To put it very simply, career and technical education encompasses a wide variety of areas. Student enrollment has always been booming, and quite honestly, the whole set of programs really focuses on performance-based assessment, authentic application of the content and skills that kids are picking up in these courses. These are STEM disciplines. They bring in all the different skills and understandings across the board. And quite honestly, we're looking to continue to provide more and more opportunities for kids to explore interests, career paths, so on and so forth. Project Lead the Way is the pre-engineering sequence, but we also offer accelerated opportunities in everything from TV broadcasting to child development through the UConn Extended Early College Experience. And again, it really is something that we take a great deal of pride on. And it's just a booming area. Kids are interested, we've added new courses, and we'll continue to work on these things, particularly performance-based assessments.
And I guess last but not least, I'm Kevin Ryan. I'm the special education administrator here at the high school. I also am the administrator for the launch program, which is our 18 to 22 transition program, and the downtown campus, which is our alternative program. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight, reporting with part of this team. As you can see, the results are really impressive, and I think it probably goes without saying that all of what you've heard tonight in terms of, the initiatives that are happening at virtually every level here really do encompass special education, right? So we're not a standalone department. All of our kids are mainstreamed into all of these courses and classrooms that you've seen before. So what we're trying to do in special education, as in all places, is we really want for special education students to participate in as much of the general ed curriculum as we possibly can, right? In our language, it's called least restrictive environment. And the more students we have in general ed classes, we know the more opportunities that they're going to have for rich and rigorous curriculum and opportunities. So, our job really as special educators is to continue to provide those opportunities, but also provide support for them. And one way that we do that is really by making sure that the general education teachers who have lots of responsibilities, right, for a wide variety and range of students in their classrooms, to make sure that they have what they need in order to be successful with some of the most challenging and hardest kids to teach, right? So we want to be sure that as a department, we are supporting any efforts or initiatives that they're taking to shift their practices, to build a tool belt that has different sets of instructional practices and assessment practices, so that our kids, special ed kids, can be successful in those general education classes. I think it's also important to note that a lot of our special ed kids, in fact 25% of this senior class special education students participate in an advanced level class, and that's pretty impressive. And that has held steady over the last couple of years. So it's impressive. We want to keep doing more of it, so that we can have opportunities for kids. As part of the, helping teachers work with the most challenging students, we really want to cultivate collaboration between special educators and general educators. Most times, I can say this as a former special education teacher, most times special education teachers tend to be generalists. We may have an area of interest, right? Something that we might have a passion for, be it math or science or social studies, but we do know that it is in the content area teachers that have the most expertise in their area. However, they don't necessarily have the most expertise in how to differentiate curriculum, right? How to modify assessments to be sure that we're both providing the opportunity for students to participate in a rigorous assessment, but also be able to just sort of pick out those things that are most essential. So those are things that are important to ensure the success for special ed kids, and it's really important that through professional learning, collaboration between special education, be it special ed teachers, OT, PT, speech and language, that there's a good, solid collaboration between all of those people. I think the thing that's really critical, right, is all of our students come to us with IEPs or individualized education plans, and everything that you've been hearing tonight in terms of assessment and assessment data, it's really important for us to use all of the curricular-based assessments, but all of the standardized assessments that you see here tonight and others to really help define specific goals and objectives that are important for our kids to be successful in general in school towards graduation, but also, again, to be part of the general ed curriculum.
So, at this point, I'll take any questions and probably ask my colleagues to help me.
Yeah, thank you all for your presentation. Questions, comments? Brendan, go ahead.
Thanks. This was an outstanding presentation. It's great to see the progress even through the pandemic, particularly on the AP side. But the question I had on the AP is it seems like those courses are fairly rigid in terms of the information that you need to teach. Your goal is for the kids to do well on the test. What opportunities exist, if any, to broaden what those kids learn, not necessarily have the same set of information for each class when you're teaching those AP courses? I know part of it is adding the other courses, be it engineering, arts, et cetera. But is there an opportunity in those AP courses to, sort of broaden or change what the kids are learning, or are we kind of locked into specific curriculum?
There is specific curriculum, but what you teach with inside that curriculum there's really some flexibility toward that. And I would say what you said before is important. We want students to take their passions and kind of, offer a wide variety of courses to kids, whether that be computer science or car care. You could be taking a rigorous AP course and they do have some flexibility within those courses, but you could also take car care because that's really of interest to you. And that's one of the best things about this place is if you have a passion on top of whatever you want to explore, there's a place for it here.
Thanks.
Penny?
So I had sort of a follow-up question to that, because you talk to other high schools and they start telling you very proudly, oh, we're getting rid of all of our APs. Some private schools are. Private schools are going away from APs. They're too restrictive in terms of how you teach it. And yet I feel, from what I can see, from this presentation tonight, our students are taking the AP classes. They're preparing them well for college. And, when they come back from college and you say, how's it going? Were you ready? To a person, it's always sort of a scary question when I find it at grad and ask. And to, they've all said, I felt so prepared. And this is students going to, different levels of colleges. So what is it about the way we're teaching these courses at New Canaan that we're not feeling the restrictions of them and we're feeling like they're really bringing out the best in our students?
I think we have the same concerns other places have, right? Like, you don't want to overwhelm students, with the workload that they have, and that's something that we're always considering and thinking about. Some of those other places that you're referring to are going with some almost like AP light. So they'll strip some things from AP, but keep a lot of the core tenets of the AP class, and then they still go out and take the AP test. So even though they're not necessarily running the same course exactly, the kids are still, in some cases, taking those AP tests. So we have the same concerns that other places might have. I think our teachers are well-trained, but every place has well-trained teachers. That's not really fair to say that other places wouldn't have well-trained teachers. But we're cognizant of the same concerns that some places may have. So you do see some of that at some of the private schools. But we want to monitor, our students and make sure that they continually do well, but they're also emotionally prepared as well as they move on. So I don't know if I answered that totally for you. If anybody else wants to pop in, go ahead.
I would just add, I have, to build on that question, are we hearing anything from the colleges? I mean, are there any, are the expectations changing with respect to AP classes? And, you hear a lot about GPA and course selections, but what is the real perspective on the AP classes that the high school offers and that the students take?
I'll let Cindy hop in on that in a second, but we did have, our parents were wonderful enough to provide Jeff Salingo, Who Gets In and Why. If you guys had a chance to pop on that the other day, it was in conjunction with Darien and Westport as well. And he basically studied, who gets into, I think it was Davidson, Clarkson, and University of Washington, right? And so ultimately, what he prescribes is that the students need to take the most rigorous courses that the school offers. Generally, you look at AP courses, but there's always a balance with that as well. You have to judge each student that's on their own merits and find out what's right for them. Cindy, do you share that? You want to add to that?
Well, I think my only add to that is that college.
Cindy, come on up.
Nice try. Didn't put my lipstick on, so.
I think colleges understand the AP curriculum and know what to expect from a student. And when they see the scores that we produce, they know what they're getting in that student and our reputation as a school. So that combination means they understand exactly what we're doing. A lot of private schools are going away, maybe looking at other things. They're looking at portfolios of work. and things because they have smaller numbers and are able to do a lot of those kinds of things where they almost blur the lines and make it a little bit more difficult for colleges to understand where a student is coming from. I think to date, we have not struggled with that and looked at that. I think our teachers have been really creative in producing the curriculum so kids score well, but I don't see them sticking to something and just lockstep teaching from a book or something like that. They're doing some really interesting things. So, did that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Bob?
Thanks. How about, I was curious on some of the other college courses, like, I think UConn, I know has done some. Is there, what's the difference between, how is that looked at when the kids are going to college? Is it like, would they rather see the AP stuff, or does the other college level courses, what's their, you know, do you see that mix growing over time, or?
Yes, I mean, we're looking to add courses where it's, it makes the most sense for us. Interest drives some of that, but certainly, like the UConn courses, they'll tout that they're 87% transferable, you
Right.
know, so these kids can walk out and have transferable credits to a wide variety of universities. AP, some students may leave with credits, they might not, depending on the university.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it's the right course for us, we'll do it.
Yeah, just to add to that very briefly, when you're, students that are in the UConn ECE program are actually, they're essentially looked at as UConn students. They have a UConn ID, they have UConn mail, and they do the registration right through the portal, you know, at UConn. So they become UConn credits that can then be transferred on.
Right.
And the same with, you know, NCC or whatever, you
Right.
know, they become students in that school. So it is, they are more transferable. And I know our teachers need to go through training and other things too to teach those courses, so they're pretty rigorous.
But I'm wondering, is there certain, like, types of courses that would be better maybe through UConn? Like, I know, like, the AP Computer Science, in my opinion, is pretty lacking. Like, some of the college level, or college courses might be better.
Part of it is, I think they have to be willing to do the match. You know, we don't pick them. UConn has a catalog, I think, that of the courses that they offer the articulation with.
Right.
So they may or may not let us do those computer science courses.
Got it.
So.
And we are looking to add a course in BPA next year through UConn, so.
And, I mean, not to belabor it, but some of them are dual. So sometimes there's an AP course that's also offered for ECE credit. And you can pick one, the other, or both.
Okay.
Phil?
Thanks. I understand this is a presentation, you know, it's about assessment and what's happening once these kids are getting into these AP classes. But can you talk a little bit about the criteria for getting into these classes, who's getting in, you know, that whole process?
Into AP classes?
Yes.
We do have course recommendations. However, that's also in context of working with our counselors, working with our teachers. There's not necessarily a definite set of things. So if a student's not recommended to get into a course, they can still get in through the process of conversations with family, teacher, department chair, counselor.
Okay.
Penny?
So I know that we had worked, the science department had worked really hard over the last years to build up sort of opportunities for New Canaan High School students to do independent research and work with other, you know, professionals, not, you know, in the area. And I was wondering if any of that was coming back this year. I'm guessing a lot of it stopped during, you know, the worst of the pandemic, and was hoping that we were able to get those opportunities going again for our students.
So unfortunately, a lot of institutions don't want to take high school students right now into their research labs and in some of those partnerships. They are starting to come back, you know, where there's some like classes through Cornell, it's like a neuroscience class, but it's online. So while there's value to it and it's a learning experience, it's not the lab experience that we were able to partner students with in the past. So that's a part of our science research program, our topics in science research program, where students at school here, they're learning the skills and how to read scientific papers, how to communicate scientific papers, but the partnerships are where they gain some of the more specific lab skills, and those have not come back to the same level that they were at before. We're hoping that next school year they do.
Okay.
Dan, go ahead.
So I have a couple questions I listed out earlier, but I just want to follow up on the discussion you were talking a little bit about the private schools and, you know, some of the curriculum concerns related to AP. Can you just get a little bit more granular and specific on like what they're actually concerned about and substantively? Because it seems like from the test scores and from teaching a pretty rigorous, challenging AP course load that the students are doing well and benefiting from it. So I'd just like to understand maybe the different educational goals.
Just in context of conversations around when some of that came out with a neighboring private school, and it was about leaving some units out. So if you had an AP curriculum, you might take a piece of it out, and hopefully to best meet the needs of kids. However, we're doing really well, you know, but we are always concerned with our emotional well-being of all our students to make sure that they're not overburdened as well. But that's really was about leaving pieces out. But my understanding is many of those students were still going to take, you know, the AP exams and things like that as well.
And are they adding other things in, or are they just teaching less during the year? Like what?
Specifically, I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I'd be speaking out of turn.
And then I guess just a couple things, and some of these are more follow-ups, but
Sure.
Is it possible for, on page 11, where you have the very competitive, highly competitive, most competitive schools, to actually get a listing of those?
Sid, do you want to talk more about those schools? The breakdown of where those things? Why don't you come out?
I think if you even just looked at our school profile, on the back of the school profile, we list where the students have gone, and you can see a good level there, but if you actually want the listing of specific schools and where they fall, it's Barron's who creates that, who's most competitive, highly competitive, very competitive. So you can look on the Barron's guide, and they produce those standings.
We have some more of the school profiles from the meeting I had with the New Canaan Realtors. So I'll get a copy of that out to everyone, take a look. And if you want more, we're glad to get it for you.
Sure, not a problem.
And then Bob touched on it a little bit earlier, but I was, I guess, surprised at the comment of 40% of the students did not submit the SAT scores.
Yeah.
Now that's, I know I've seen in the news some states are going away from it entirely, like you can't even voluntarily submit it, but like, can you maybe just provide a little bit more color on both that dynamic and, I guess, is the strong SAT performance of our students not indicative of like college level success, or is there other issues?
You have a lot of layers there, I guess, but the pandemic really drove a lot of that. So last year, many students might have only had one test that they could submit. So some may have chosen not to submit it. You know, as there also were more test optional schools that came into play last year, and have actually for this year and for next year, correct? So we may see that number rise from what Cindy had estimated at 5% pre-pandemic to 40% now, but it may decline from the 40% too. You know, so where that ends up, I don't exactly know. I don't think, you don't have a guess, do you, what people next year will do?
Well, we are asking that of every college we speak to as to what they're planning. And what we're seeing as for schools like ours, where the kids have a lot of opportunity to test this year, that there may be some more expectations than impact last year. Last year, I don't know if you would know, but we had test dates, then they were canceled. Then there was another test date, and then they were canceled. So kids who prepared as juniors didn't finally get to take an SAT till October or November. So any prep they did really went out the window because kids don't remember that far in advance. But so in the end, their scores were lower than probably they would have been, and they didn't submit them. I don't see that happening this year as much. Kids are going to use them more and more. And colleges, the most competitive schools, did say that kids who submitted scores had a slight edge coming from schools like ours who did submit. So it was slight, it wasn't major, but that's what we're hearing so far this year. So my prediction is, yes, they're all testing, whether they submit them or not is a final decision when we're looking at the colleges they're applying to.
Okay. And now, I actually don't know this, but do the students submit the AP test scores? Is that an optional thing, or is that automatically reported? And like, is there a dispersion between the SATs and the AP scores?
They don't submit them for admissions, but the colleges often ask them what their scores were. If they took them in junior year, they wouldn't know for senior year because they don't take them to May. But if they ask kids to self-report their scores, but they aren't always used in admissions right now. Their scores aren't. Just what that they took the courses is what they use for admissions.
Thank you.
You know, and I think around this, I'd only share that I think another byproduct of the pandemic was an acceleration of schools going test optional. It was a movement. More and more schools were starting to move this way or talk about it. And then when the pandemic hit, as Cindy mentioned, students didn't have the opportunity to take the exam, and many more went test optional, with it. The other part of your question, Dan, at the beginning was around, what does the SAT measure? What does it tell you? And I think Cindy's comment about if you prep in 1 month and you don't take the test, you forget a lot of the answers, tells you it's not necessarily indicative of all that much. I think the latest research out would tell you it's most closely correlated with success in the first year of school, but is not correlated with outcomes beyond that. And that there are much better measures to use to assess college readiness and aptitude and success than the SAT test or any one of those sort of sit-down tests. And it has to do with strength of program. It has to do with opportunities. It has to do with, how students, even GPA through the 4 years of school is much more highly correlated with success in college than an SAT test or an ACT.
Is that consistent amongst like higher performing versus average performing and lower performing school districts?
It is.
Penny?
So I'm just, in terms of coming out of the pandemic and selling our incredibly talented students to colleges and universities, this might be more a question for our workshop next year, but I'm just really interested in what the changes in the resources that the guidance department might need, or if you need to visit more schools, or just sort of what you need to do to sell our students, and because the game of college admission changes and is it's doing so now. So more really for the budget workshop, but I just wanted to let you all know I was really interested in that.
Thank you.
Our counselors are very happy when they can travel again.
They really.
I thought they might have they might need to make up some lost ground and haven't been to schools that they should go to, and we might need to increase that budget next year.
Cindy says yes.
I have go ahead, please.
Just out of curiosity, when I went to college, the SAT was how they kind of leveled the playing field, right? Like that was the standard, and they looked at your grade and the school system you came from. But are colleges now, are they replacing the SAT with something that each of them is doing independently? Is it more essay based? Like how are they, I guess, leveling the playing field to some degree? Like how are they comparing students?
I told Cindy before this started, I said, you're not really going to speak during the presentation, but I guarantee you, they're going to call you up.
I think generally they are changing their application and looking at the whole student much more. They're looking at everything from the reputation of the school, the curriculum they're taking, what did they do outside of the school to develop their interests, not just take AP classes, what else did you do that supported those interests moving forward? What did you do? And then the recommendations from teachers and counselors, which encapsulate them in the classroom and in the school, where they leaders in whatever their chosen areas of interest. That could be the captain of a team, or that could be being on the TV broadcasting as the leader there. So they look at all kinds of things, where, as Dr. Lutzy was saying, the SAT tells you so little these days. And they realized it really didn't tell you a lot about the student and how they'd be successful in their school. And in schools like ours, our kids are well supported. We have high scores, but that is But the transcript says the same thing. If the student is taking AP courses and honors courses and doing well, the SAT is only one other piece that just confirms that, so.
Thank you.
Is the evolving nature of like analyzing the whole student, is that helping New Canaan kids or hurting them, or like what's that dynamic?
Oh, I think it helps, and I think, we, as Penny was asking about, we do a lot in terms of developing those relationships with colleges to make sure that they understand who we are as a school, and that our kids are really amazing in what they pursue and the things that they're trying to do. And as counselors, we're always trying to find opportunities for them to be exposed to interests for them or to expand on those interests that they have. So I think we have a great reputation among colleges. We'd like to expand the number of colleges that think that about us. Our kids tend to be drawn to the same colleges every year to apply, and we'd like to expand that a little bit so we don't have 80 applications to BC. Each year we're trying to do that. Or is that a BC? Okay. So we'll let you know on those.
Don't go far.
Okay.
I have a question just in terms of like general takeaways and stepping back and looking at the past year. I mean, obviously our students seem to, do extremely well in spite of the circumstances. And, I was happy to hear some of the strategies for making sure that those students have the opportunity to sort of catch up on the areas that were needed. But in terms of patterns that have been observed with high school students relative to prior years, everything from utilization of the writing and reading centers to just mental health, stress. What are any broad observations that we should be aware of or that would be helpful to know about?
I'll share a couple, and then obviously anybody can pop in. But, ultimately it was a tough transition back. I think it was really hard for kids not to have a normal school year. I think I saw in Dr. Correnti's presentation the other day just about when the last time they had normal school was, right? So for our kids to come back to school, in the beginning of the year, it was interesting because I saw things I didn't normally see, whether that be some behaviors, whether that be just how they spoke to each other, things that you wouldn't normally anticipate in our school. But part of that is kind of righting the ship a little bit now, and I think really as much as I hate long stretches of school, Dr. Lutzy, we don't necessarily have another 8 weeks in a row or whatever it was, of 5-day weeks. That long stretch really kind of got us back in a groove. Honestly, as much as I'm always concerned about students' emotional and mental health, I think the rigors of this school actually really helped kind of get us back in a groove. And that long stretch of time was really important for our kids. And also to get back to normal traditions. Having a normal sports season really helped them and made them feel like they're a part of something and really being home. Whether it be the furniture we have, you see those tables we have now out in the lobby again. All that stuff went away for a year. So it really didn't feel like home for these guys. And that's one of the biggest things that I think they love about the school, that I love about this school, is this place feels like home to them. So while they work really hard, they push themselves really hard in the classes they're in, they also have a lot of freedoms and a lot of things that kind of go with that. In the beginning when we came back, it was a little tricky, but they're back in a group. Now, we do worry about, Cindy will probably talk about the number of kids that maybe visit the school counseling officer, psychologists, and things like that. We want to make sure kids are okay. But I'm rambling, I think, a little bit. Anybody want to add anything to that? Well, thanks. Thank you for that. Anyway.
And could you also comment on the role of the block schedule? Because I know that was critical during the remote learning, but I think, as we move forward more into normal times, I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Honestly, I think we put a lot of professional development into that, and we will continue to do that for teachers. The truth is, it's been a blessing for our students. We've had a couple of parent workshops. We've asked them for their feedback on the block schedule. We've had lunches with students, and all of them said it has slowed down the pace tremendously. They feel they can attack their school day and their school work differently than they could before when we had an 8-period day, 7 periods in one day. And it's really just kind of helped them to kind of focus on each of the days that they have. The biggest being their preparation for homework and for their classes.
Great. Thank you. All right. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. It was very helpful and insightful, and thank you for all of your hard work. It's really remarkable to see the results here tonight. I'm just really proud of our students.
Thank you. We love the school and the community, so thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Chris.
all.
Thanks.
And Michelle, I'd like to recruit you to help with the budget presentation, which I'll be putting together in a few weeks.
Okay, next on our agenda.
Much less exciting, unfortunately. All right, thank you all. So just a couple of relatively brief updates. Of course, as always, glad to talk more about anything, but just wanted to let the board know that we ran our second shot clinic on Thursday last week. It went very well, as the first one did. We had close to 1,000 students come through again. So we are on track there, as we had talked about last meeting with the numbers. We've seen a marked increase in positive cases in town and across the state, and as you probably know. Currently on the dashboard, you'll see that there are 18 students in the district who've tested positive and 3 staff members who've tested positive. And those numbers are up significantly. If we go back a month, you wouldn't see 25% of that. So we're seeing those trends. We have 42 quarantined students as a result of that. And most of those cases, the 21 cases, really have popped over the last couple of days, the last 5 days or so. So we think it could be a result of Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving gatherings, some travel that may have occurred over Thanksgiving. Family spread is still an issue. So if one member of the household gets it, it's more common for us to see it spread that way. And of the 3 staff members, all 3 of them were or are unvaccinated that we have. We are anticipating that at some point, Governor Lamont will make masking a local issue. We're starting to see writing on the wall around that a little bit. Right now, it's scheduled to be mid-February that the EO runs out, but it may happen before that. So if and when that does, we'll be looking at local data and metrics to make that determination for the district. Among those data, we'll look at vaccination rates, percent positivity, the number of cases per 100,000, longitudinal trends, sort of which way the number's moving, things like that. We're going to be working with our district health advisors as we sort of narrow that down and figure out what those cut points sort of should be. As we do, we have some experience in the past. To prepare for that, now that the second shot clinic has occurred, we're going to be asking families to indicate their vaccination status for us. So we're going to be sending something around at some point this week where they can upload vaccination card and let us know. Those responses will be kept secure in the school nurses database, and it'll be similar to how we house the data for other records that we collect, other vaccination records. So for me, I'll have access to the aggregate information, and I'll be able to report back to the board sort of where we are in the aggregate across the schools. Of course, we have all of our adults, all the staff, so we'll be getting this information from our kids. We'll talk to our families. We'll talk to our medical advisors to, like I said, sort of work through the fine details of how that looks, but we want to be prepared for the day when it becomes a local decision. We don't then want to spend weeks trying to get the system in place. So we'll get a draft of that together, and I'll bring it forward to the board for conversation and consideration. At the schools themselves, one of the many wonderful things our PTCs do is around the holidays, they offer a holiday luncheon for our staff. So as a next step of sort of reopening our schools to volunteerism, we're having opening our doors for the PTCs to be able to come in to the teacher lounges and be able to serve our staff and to they like to come, set up, they make it very nice, they bring the food that they've made or purchased, and they serve the staff, and a nice holiday theme. So we thought that was a good way to do it. It's still not the volunteers in the classrooms with the kids. I don't think we're quite there yet, given the trends that we're looking at right now. But around for the adults and being able to do that in the faculty room, I think it's the right next step. And then we're really optimistic that after the holidays, if things are looking good, we can do the same in the classrooms themselves and be able to open that back up. Given the trends and given where we are, I did have an opportunity to ask the DPH if they were considering changing the travel guidance. As you know, right now, Connecticut last year had put together its own set of travel guidance that was pretty restrictive, and then they defaulted back to the CDC's guidelines. And talking to the DPH, they anticipate staying with the CDC's guidelines, and they don't think that's going to change. And those guidelines are to, they suggest or recommend quarantine for unvaccinated travelers upon return. But for us, we're saying this is a guideline. Every trip is different. Every family's experience is different. For instance, if we have a family is going up to Vermont, staying together as a family, going to a cabin, doing their skiing, being careful while they're up there, that's very different than a family that might be going to somewhere else where it'd be much more contact with many more people. So we put the guidelines out there and trust families to make the decisions that they feel is appropriate for them and others. And lastly around this, I just want to say thanks to our principals, administrators, nurses, faculty, staff. They have, as you heard a little bit tonight, they've continued to do their very best, their commitment to the work that we do, coming in, caring for our kids and keeping things moving forward. We're trying to balance, sort of continue along a continuum, trying to open things up a little bit more at a time along the way as we can, but we've got to do it in a measured way, and we're trying to take that measured approach, but moving in the right direction, understanding that sometimes direction is more important than speed, so we're trying to continue moving in the right direction and trying to adjust that pace according to what's going on around us. And that's what we have.
Great. Thank you. Julie.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned Lamont is possibly maybe going to consider moving towards local control for the schools or local decision-making about the masks. Does he ask the superintendents how they feel or what they want, or does he just kind of make that call?
Well, whether he asks or not, we tell him, but ultimately he will make that call. And he does it really more through the DPH, I think, the Department of Public Health, than with us. But he's actually been very open to feedback and conversations around this. So and right now it would, if nothing changed, it would occur in mid-February. And I'm only sort of, anticipating that it may occur after the holidays instead of, waiting that long, but it may not. This is just, but I'd like to be prepared in case it does.
Okay. Sorry, another question. You talked about family spread, cases with family spread. Have we seen any classroom spread?
Unfortunately, we have. In one of our classrooms, we had a teacher who tested positive, and then we did have a number of students in that class subsequently test positive in the week or so after. We got to a point where we started seeing what was happening, so we invited the DPH to come in and take a look at the data, and they're looking at it now just to give us some feedback on that. But we do find that for classroom spread, really, it starts generally with the adult, because the adults are talking the most and they're projecting their voice and they're in the room much more so than kids bringing it into the room and having classroom spread that way.
Sorry, last question.
Sure.
Uploading vaccination records, is that coming from the state or else is it a district? Or?
It's going to come from the state, but we're just a little bit ahead of, I think we're just a little bit ahead of it. That really comes out of a conversation with the commissioner. And again, it's just a way for us to see where we are so that we can sort of put that plan in place around what we're going to do when it becomes a local decision.
Dan?
So following on Julie's point a little bit, is commenting to either the governor or the DPH something that we as a board should discuss and consider? Would that be something that you think is additive to the discussion? Or is it something that we should wait for feedback? Because I think that, in the past, I think other boards might have kind of written letters or commented, and it's not something that, obviously, it's a new makeup of the board, but that we've really talked a lot about, and I know it sounds like we're gonna talk about it, and we'll have a draft of something down the road, but is that something that we should consider, like, being more proactive about?
I think that for us to be prepared, it's to look at what's the criteria we'll use to make that decision. I know that there's an overwhelming amount of feedback going to the governor on either sides of this very contentious issue. So do I think it's going to impact that decision? I don't. I think that he's looking through the DPA, he's working through other things, and he's speaking regularly with the commissioner, with the executive director of CAPS, with others who are sharing different feedback. But I think our best action step is to be prepared for when that day comes.
Then just touching on, and I guess it's probably less related to the last 5 days and the cases, but I think it would be helpful to understand, maybe looking back, and maybe it's just for this school year, or maybe it's even included of last year, but like just for the 18 students and the 3 staff, I guess, do we track, or are we able to see, like, are they asymptomatic or symptomatic? Like, did they just get tested because they might have been following some travel guidelines versus like symptomatic? Like, so that would be helpful. It would certainly be helpful to understand hospitalizations. Like, if they're low or 0, like, that's obviously a better fact than if they're high, which would be obviously a lot more concerning. So again, it's less about maybe these 21 cases than trying to pick a data set. And I think not necessarily to even change the dynamic, but just to give people more context to the numbers, I think will be helpful.
Sure. And again, we update the dashboard on the website, regularly just about these numbers. We do track the information around symptomatic or not. All of it's word of mouth, of course. It's just what people are able or willing to report to us, to our nurses. And we've been tracking that all the way back to, to the beginning of last year and even the summer of 20. So we've got some. So I'll take a look and see what would make sense to share out.
Are the cases self-reported too, or is that something that we get from the town?
It's both. Sometimes we're letting the town know about cases, and sometimes they're letting us know. So it's both ways.
And is there anything self-reported on the hospitalization front?
No, but we do, without, I am able to talk to Dr. Reed, who is very well aware of what's happening at Stanford Hospital. Dr. Pierce is aware of what's happening in Norwalk Hospital, and when the EOC meets to have some discussions around COVID and things, they do share out those metrics. So I can probably go back and sort of show some trends and see where we are now. I do know the number of hospitalizations in Stanford has been increasing, as it has been statewide. Now, whether or not that's, our kids, our adults, the people in New Canaan, I don't know, but I can talk to the numbers in the hospitals themselves.
Okay. And then you mentioned a little bit of like the different people, both I think in town and at the state level, that you're gonna discuss and like work with. I think, at least kind of only, I guess, second meeting, just trying to figure out, like, if you could, like, at some point provide a little bit more overview to the board just on like who they are, like what advisory role these people play, like where their data comes from, like, because I think that would be something that when we're going through and making the ultimate decisions, I think having that like background and context would be very helpful.
Sure, glad to.
Questions? Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
All right. Oh, did you have a question, Penny?
I was just wondering, I know that 97% of our teachers, I think is the statistic you gave, are vaccinated, and I think that's terrific. I was just wondering for the teachers who, for whatever reason, are not vaccinated, if we're seeing these cases now, and we know we have, even more contagious variant coming, do we need to go, instead of having the once-a-week testing, do we need to have more frequent testing than that? My niece did the Broad program last year. She was teaching at MIT, and she had to get tested twice a week. That was their protocol. So I was just not just throwing that out there as, wondering what the experts are saying we need to do in cases where we have unvaccinated staff.
Mm-hmm. Well, last year, I recall it was the Department of Public Health over at Yale that had put together a testing regimen and did recommend to whole population twice a week. The system that we're using now comes from the state and is requirement under the state. Essentially, it's a testing mandate, a weekly testing mandate with a vaccine exemption, right? And so that's what comes down. If we're going to be more stringent than that, I think we'd have to have some conversations with Andy and a few others around
It
ability
would
to
be
do so and
complicated,
things like
but-
that, yeah. I'm actually hoping that, given trends and things too, always want people to know if they are unvaccinated and change their mind, would like to be a simple phone call to our health department, and you can schedule same day or next day and go down and get that.
Thank you.
Bob? Oh.
Just on that front, whether it's the Department of Health, like, have they commented on, certainly, I think there's a debate out there, but whether vaccinated or unvaccinated is increased or decreased prevalence of spread? I know that the vaccine is shown to, reduce severity and things like that, but as far as the actual just purely spreading it, is that something that they've kind of provided data on that we could look at?
I believe so, and I'd be glad to get the specific numbers and take a look, I think, without going deeper. I'll get that for you. Sure.
Bob?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the vaccination card for a minute. So is the idea behind collecting that just to find out what our vaccination rate is in the population?
Yeah, it's to look at the population in each of the schools, the student population, and to have the card means we have the dates. So we can also look at the dates and determine whether or not, if it becomes appropriate to offer, say, a booster clinic to our secondary students or things like that. So we can look to that information.
So the idea is that, you're gonna take the cards, key them in, so you have a way to...
Yep, so the idea would be that they would, and we did it with our staff already, over the summer, but they would essentially take a picture of the card, upload it into a portal, it would go right into the Power School record, and then the nurses would have access to that. And then we would essentially dump it out of there and put it into their SNAP program where they keep the health records, and keep that all in there.
I guess I understand collecting cards for employees because it's a different relationship than parents and students. So I'm just kind of one of the considerations is privacy just in general, and is that our job sort of to monitor, parent, what's that?
Yeah, we would treat it similar to the other vaccines that we collect information on,
But those
from
ones
families.
are sort of mandatory, this one's not.
Right, this one.
That's the difference. I mean.
It is, agreed. But we would keep it secure the same ways.
I mean, the way I kind of think about it is, it puts us in a position, if we want to, at some point next year, not require masks, we made that decision, puts us in a position to be able to have the data to say, 98% of our,
Yeah, no, I get
students
it. I mean, I
are
was even
vaccinated.
thinking collect it, but collect it, more anonymously, so it's not a tracked record versus, send links. You could send out surveys or ask people to answer. I think they'd be.
Yeah, there are also scenarios though where, just like right now, we have a testing mandate for our staff who aren't vaccinated. We could have the same protocol in place for students. I'm not saying we will make that decision, but that's one reason why
Yeah,
you
well,
might.
hopefully, COVID positive today is a little different than 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, it
You
is.
heard the gentleman with the rates.
But it's good to have the information is my,
I think
how I think about it.
other states, I've seen other states who are either implementing or soon, will be implementing mask status based on the vaccination rate of their students. So I don't know where Connecticut's headed, but, if we were, I think Massachusetts is one of those states, so if we were to head in that direction, I think the idea would be we would need to know to get us to that stage.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, and, I guess I feel like when we get there, we'll get that. If they're telling us to do it, that's one thing. Right?
Yeah.
Voluntarily doing it is a different.
I don't know. The way I think about it is if we think something's coming down the pike, we want to have the information, at our fingertips to be able to actually make that decision when we can. So we don't have to then, spend a month gathering a whole bunch of information, delaying that decision.
Well, I guess that's sort of the fine point. Like I'm saying, just survey and find out versus collect and find out. And collect when you need to, not just because we want to.
Yeah, I guess, again, not to belabor, but I think one of the challenges is we're making really, I think, pretty consequential decisions based on these results. And I think it's important to have faith and trust in the results of that information, what those numbers look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think people will be truthful if we ask them. I mean, there's fake cards out there too, so.
Phil?
Do we have any sort of data on what percentage of kids have actually had COVID? Do we know?
No. I mean, we could go back through and look at what's been reported to us and and pull out the students and take a look at how that breaks out for percentage. If we looked at our total numbers of cases last year, we had about 350 cases, if I remember, 350 or so. But that was students and adults, so we'd have to take a look. And that's, again, just what was reported to us. I guess I could probably go through the health department and ask the numbers for certain ages, from, say, 5 to 18 or something like that. We could do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
The uploading of the vaccination records, do you foresee that being something in the future that might be used to kind of give students who are vaccinated different opportunities than the unvaccinated? Or will it be kept private and?
Yeah. It would certainly be kept private. It would be, the nurses would have that information as they have the other information, the other vaccination information. I think that go back, last week I met with an advisory group of students, and it was students grades 9 through 12, different, just to get together. They didn't really know each other, and we talked about a number of things, including this. And I asked them some questions about, if and when the mandate is lifted, about what it might look like, in school. And so I wanted to get their feedback about, if there should be, from their perspective, any kind of differentiation. And their feedback really was, no, it should be either sort of everybody wears it or nobody wears it at the high school level, but to try to sort of run that fine line of saying that if the metrics are between a certain range, then the vaccinated don't have to and the unvaccinated do. They said, what they see everywhere they go is if somebody's in a room and a couple of people don't have their mask on, everybody winds up removing that mask regardless. So their feedback was don't put a system in place that can't be enforced, can't be implemented, put in place. So I think that reinforced what I was thinking. I just wanted to hear it from them. And so I think that it's going to be pretty binary as we put this together. Either we're going to hit the metrics and be okay to do it, or we're not. And we'll have to go through that way. So no, I don't see trying to put a system in place like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to that end, and I know there was a comment tonight, but I think just understanding what some of the, requirements are for either participation, and I think there are some concerns, and from people that want to ensure that there's not disparate treatment when it comes to, education and educational opportunities and extracurricular opportunities related to vaccine status, because I think a lot of people, they view it as a personal decision amongst parent, child, and their, healthcare provider. So I just think as we talk about, drafting the policies, I think getting a little bit more granular and understanding exactly, not just what the policy is, but how it's implemented would be helpful. And I think hopefully maybe assuage some of the, questions and concerns that parents might have.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll move on at this point. We have, thank you all. We have 3 committee charters to review, and you all received on Friday a draft copy of the bylaws and then the 3 committees that have been proposed. Tonight's a first read, so we'll go charter by charter. I'll ask for a motion, and then we can discuss each one individually if that works for everyone. So first, the BOE Resources Committee Charter. Is there a motion to approve the BOE Resources Committee Charter as a special committee for a term of 1 year? And as described in the document, because we're reinitiating these committees, they'll serve as special committees for 1 year, and then we'll reinstate them as standing committees next year. Brendan first. Second, Julie. Questions, discussion?
Just
Hugo.
as an
Sorry,
no,
hold
go
on.
ahead.
You go.
Just to confirm what we're gonna be voting on, like, there's a question mark next to large. Are we gonna discuss what large is for, like, the Part D of deliverables, review multi-year and large contracts? Are we just not there yet?
Oh, yeah, I meant to remove that question mark. Got away from me.
That's
And then I guess, but it's a good, I mean, my question without
Yeah,
the
so
question mark
tonight
would have
we
been,
can.
what is large?
Yeah, so tonight we can collect commentary, and then at our next meeting, I'll bring back hopefully a final version of all the charters.
Got it.
Yeah, and like many of them are multi-year, like the transportation contract is, multi-year. The facilities projects, we're doing roofs, we're doing other things, those obviously come before the committee here. Smaller ones, for instance, we'll have contracts with software vendors that might be a couple $100 to $1,000, things like that. Those things are sort of in the course of operations. But things that go out to bid, certainly, there's sort of monetary thresholds around all of that, things like that. So we'll get more granular for
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Dan?
So just so I understand the process, so the first thing we have here is part of like the general bylaws, right? And then we get into the 3 committee charters.
Correct.
Are we changing the bylaws? They looked
No.
consistent?
Yes.
Okay.
It was just purely informational. And then on the second page, I've listed the proposed committee structures. And then the real review is in the charters. And just, so some of these committees have existed before. So the starting point was prior charters, but some of them are out of date. And I think it's really reflecting upon, what the committees are intended to do in our current environment. And so this is intended to reflect that.
Right, so in the bylaws, the committees take a certain structure, and the first year they are a special, and then if they're working for the board, they would then accept them as standing committees, but they first serve as a special committee. So this way, all 3 of the committees are on the same cycle, and moving through in the assignments here. We had a communications committee in the past, and the same governance committee and resources, but this way they're all together for the board to move forward with.
So just on that front, because there's up on the website, there's I guess the Series 9000, which is like the board adopted in September 2016, which I think is where the language came from. But the only place I could find the old committee charters was in like a BOE bylaws from October 2014 that I think were superseded by the September 2016 stuff. But a lot of the language was similar with some maybe updates on the charter. So just what might be helpful, we can get into it when we go through each committee, but like, when did these committees like stop to exist, or were they reauthorized? Is there any record of like what they did, so that as we think about the role in the charter, we can actually dovetail it to like what worked, what didn't work?
Yeah, well, and we could go back, but I think, what's the way the committees have been operating, at least for the resources committee, it's been a longstanding committee. It's been operating, I think, the same way for a pretty long time, and it's in terms of its role and purpose. So I think we can reflect upon, the committee as it stands, and, the intention was to update the language.
Okay, so the charters from 2014 are still technically
Yeah.
operative.
But they're supposed to be re-voted on every, whatever.
3 years.
So 3
Right,
years
yeah.
in the case of the standing committee, and they weren't. So they technically don't exist, right?
That was kind of my question, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is why we figured, let's bring them forward here, and start with a clean slate,
Yeah.
and get them on the books and move forward.
So
And-
the question that I did have is, why, I don't see anywhere where it says the special turns into a standing. Why wouldn't they just be put in as standing committees and that's it?
There is language.
Is there?
Yep,
This-
it's why I included it. Let's see.
Right, because there is every intention for it to be a standing committee.
That's what I would think, yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, to me, it seems like the
either in this
specials are
language or
like,
somewhere
they have
else.
a purpose and a lifeline, a certain life.
So Bob, I think what happens is though, I think unless we want to go in and change the bylaws, I think that like there's actual bylaws on the committee structure.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think bylaws aside, I think there's an opportunity through the governance committee
That's
to
another
look
thing,
at this
yeah.
particular bylaw. And I think there are some minor edits that should be made that we should discuss as a governance committee, but we have to establish the committee first.
Yeah, yeah. No, I got it.
So, yeah. So let's start with the resources committee, and we'll go through as such. You'll find, I mean, the charters are exactly the same in terms of structure for each committee. And, like I said, the Resources Committee has been a long-standing active committee, plays an important role with respect to our budget and financial management of resources. Any questions or comments, edits proposed?
I have more of a question just on 3E. How much of that is committee work versus maybe chair work versus kind of full board work? Because it sounds like that's probably got a decent amount of like external kind of communication and coordination. And I just, maybe it's more informational than it is a drafting discussion, but
Yeah, it's all of the above, I think. And I would say, particularly during the budget season, the Resources Committee is a chance to have we invite in members of the Board of Finance or Town Council to discuss some additional details of the budget, or perhaps throughout the year to check in on insurance plan. And it's just an opportunity to interact with them in addition to the budget process, the meetings outlined in the budget process. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd simply add that sort of the cadence of the Resources Committee is that meeting monthly to review the prior month's financials prior to the presentation to the full board. So there's always sort of that regular meeting that's occurring in budget management. In budget development, the meetings ratchet up, and we've got quite a few more. We had a meeting today with members of the Board of Finance to talk about this next year's budget and things. So that it does adjust seasonally a little bit. There's a lot that happens on a day-to-day basis between our offices and the town offices around finances and budget as well. So I'm regularly talking to them 12 months a year, and as is Joanne and members of her department.
Okay.
So, yep.
And then in 3D, you talk about large contracts for transportation facilities. I guess I know we just had the orientation, so that this is fresh in the mind, but like the different, like the teacher contracts, certified, uncertified, is that all picked up under D, or is that,
Well, so the teacher contracts really go through the negotiations committee and then to the full board. So it's really, it could be, I mean, that would
All
certainly be
these are really-
multi-year contracts, but
These all come, what they really do is they go, other than the teacher contract negotiations, these all really go through the Resources Committee and then come to the full board. So it's really kind of first step, go through it, ask questions, and that way, when it comes to the full board, some of those questions have been answered or anticipated, and it streamlines it a little bit.
And as you know, I think every committee is an open meeting for members of the public, and certainly members of the Board of Ed are always welcome to attend any committee that they're in.
Yeah. I think the most important thing to highlight too is that committees have no decision-making power. They're really, their role is to review in specificity and discuss in detail. It takes more time than we'd have in these meetings, and then to bring back to the full board recommendations for any changes or updates. Penny?
That was just the point I was going to make. We're not delegating any power to any of these committees. I mean, we're more setting them up so they can vet things and make it smoother for the Board of Ed to do its work. The committee could disagree with the contract, and we as a board could approve it. I mean, there's no requirement that the committee approve a policy change before the board. It comes to the board. So, it's not a mini Board of Ed. It's really more just a streamlined fashion for us to get more work done and to get the information out there that the board members are going to want. But we're 9 members, and it's going to be our collective votes and opinions that make the policies for the school. So the Resources Committee has been very effective, the way it's been functioning, in my view. I think it's a good charter on that one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If anything comes up, just let me know. If you think of anything else, and that goes for all of
And
these.
it's a first read tonight.
Yeah.
Second read would be in the 20th, so
Yep.
there's time.
And if we have like cleanups or nits or things, we
Yeah,
can.
please. Yep, just let me know. All right, so moving on to we'll do Communications Charter next. Motion to approve the BOE Communications Committee Charter as a special committee for a term of 1 year. Julie first, second, Phil. All right, discussion. Again, I'll just add that This, oops, sorry. This committee was active several years ago, and then I think we had talked about, right before COVID, we were going to bring it forward to reinitiate the work of that committee, and then, we weren't able to do so, given the shift in focus. So it's a great opportunity now with new board members and a new opportunity to lay forth new goals and begin our work in this committee. Brendan?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that I think this is a really important one and an important initiative to sort of bring back and, be a good conduit from the administration to the community. We're all parents and, we know what it's like to sit just as a parent, not as a member of the board. And so to figure out how to communicate better is a great initiative in my view.
Yep. Okay. Dan?
So one of the ones on the October 2014 charter that kind of got either dropped off or maybe it's incorporated, but it was D in that one, was develop communication protocols between BOE, administration, parent, and other community groups. And I see some overlap here, but I actually thought that was a very good kind of clear deliverable in that it talked about real, protocols and things like that. And I think, I'm not saying you have to take it exactly, but I think it would be helpful for people to maybe take a look at that as they look at A through E and see if there's something there that would be.
Yeah, I think and I appreciate that comment. I saw that as an opportunity to break it out, like with the specific, rather than just generally speaking to protocols, but what are the specific deliverables that we're trying to achieve? And certainly the committee could choose to add, others as suggestions to the board, I would say.
Yeah, and I would simply say that those protocols, they were developed and are available online, so maybe one of the early steps for the committees to review those, as they stand, and if they think that they're appropriate, figure out how to maybe better communicate those out so people know what they are, and if they want to be tweaked, we can, adjust or modify them accordingly.
Yeah.
Good.
And my only other comment here, and this is I think the reference here to Article 3, Section 5 might be referencing the old version, not the new.
Yeah, okay. I probably pulled up the old one. We'll double check, yeah.
There's a lot of overlap in language.
Right.
But I think I think it's all gonna fall somewhere under the Series 9000, and I think that one might be Section 91213.
Okay. Yep, good feedback. I'll make sure that that's updated. Okay, and then lastly, the Governance Committee. Motion to approve the BOE Governance Committee Charter as a special committee for term of 1 year. First, Bob, second, Dan. Okay, discussion? Again, this is a committee that has existed for several years and the work was basically put on hold last year just due to COVID and the shift in focus.
And we have, for the governance committees, just FYI, we've contracted with Shipman to get monthly updates as well. So recommended policy updates that they say the legislation has changed here or there, and they suggest that we take a look at a policy to make some revisions. So that'll help to guide the work of the governance policies committee as well.
Yeah, I think this committee will be fairly active this year. There's a fair amount of work to do. So. Comments, questions?
Sorry, just, I was going through the binder that we got the other day, so that's why I have a few. Again, I think the references to Section 6 and Section 7 are actually to the Section 9000 updated ones. I couldn't find the first part in a verbatim language, but I did find Section 7 is in Section 9000 under the general statement of board role. So I think we should just go through that and we can do that offline.
Okay. Sure.
And then I guess for the sunset for all of these, is this, because if we're going to do a special committee for a year and then a 3 years as a standing committee, would that really push us out another year?
It would. It would. Yeah. Yeah, we'll reflect that on all three.
I would just note that on the governance committee, I think that committee would need to have, pretty strong support and has in the past from the administration to help identify and prioritize the policies, as well as from Shipman and Goodman, that we need to look at and to get drafts of them.
Yeah, we can reflect
Absolutely.
that, because that's a change. We can reflect that.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
All right.
So I had one comment across all three,
Mhm.
and I forget exactly where it is in here, but to change the charters or to revise the deliverables or anything requires a 2/3 majority. But just from like a process perspective, the board can come back, raise any issue, change the 2/3 back to just a simple majority. So it didn't make sense to me that that would be one thing that would be subject to like a 2/3 majority versus, because the board can always go back in and change the bylaws with a simple majority to say, go from 2/3 to 1. So why not just have it as a simple majority for all those cases, as opposed to creating the extra step if you were to ever get to that point?
Oh, I voted on the original, and we had long discussions about it, and we really felt that committees could run amok, and that, you know, they're extremely helpful. They do a tremendous amount of good work, and we thought that the 2/3 was a sort of a bar. I would not be in favor. I would vote against reducing that at this point. If somebody wants to go through the whole bylaw thing and change it, we could do that, but on these, I would follow the bylaws. I would keep the 2/3.
Is it 2/3 of the subcommittee or 2/3? It's because I read it as 2/3 of the whole board.
It is 2/3 of the whole board that's required to create the committee and, you know, have it in effect.
But I'm just saying, like, let's just say you had 5 people of the 9 members that wanted to add a deliverable, right? And you couldn't get a 6th vote. You can just go, as a simple process, you can just raise it at the board level.
Sorry.
You can just raise it at the board level, vote 5-4, and then change the bylaw and then go do it. So like, why make that interim step? It just didn't, I get that committees can run amok. It just didn't seem to make a lot of sense since you have the ability to do it regardless. Maybe it's a procedural hangup where people don't want to revisit it.
May I suggest that, I think it's probably a conversation continuing, but maybe it's a conversation we can have in the governance committee meeting, because I think it involves changing bylaws. Sure.
Well, and I have to double check with Robert's rules, but I believe it may be a majority if it's an agenda item, but if it's raised at a meeting off agenda, it's maybe 2/3 to change bylaws. But I'd have to double check that in Robert's rules.
But if it's an agenda item?
It may be a majority as an agenda item, but if it's not on the agenda but raised at the meeting, it may be 2/3.
Okay.
Let me double check that nuance to it all, yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right, thanks, everyone. So we'll have those edits for the next meeting. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Announcements and future business.
Yep, briefly, just want to say congratulations to our Rams football team. Yesterday lost a heartbreaker to Darien in the semifinals after beating Southington on Tuesday. But they had a wonderful season, and I want to just congratulate them for all their hard work and wish Darien good luck as they go to the finals on Saturday. Share that kindergarten registration is open for next year. So all incoming parents from East, South, and West are welcome to pre-register for kindergarten 22. They can do that right online, and we'll be holding an initial orientation session on Thursday, January 13th at 9:30 via Zoom. So we'll get some details online. You can look for that pre-registration form, and we'll be sharing information through the New Canaanite and looking for other ways to really encourage people to sign up early. As you know, anecdotally, we're a little worried about our kindergarten projections next year, given how hot the real estate market has been. So please, if you move in or you have kids ready, sign up. Let us know you're coming, and we can best prepare for when your child gets here. Finally, I want to also share our Be Well committee. Our wellness committee has organized a program for our staff called the 12 Days of Wellness. It's a challenge that takes place starting today and goes through December 22nd, with a focus on enhancing our staff's overall wellness. So participants will be entered into a raffle at the end of the whole thing. And all they have to do is fill out the registration form online, and they should just do the very best to complete as many days as they can. And I just share that as just another way we're working to promote our health and wellness for our staff. And Darlene is the chair of our wellness committee. And so things that they're asking folks to do, and it's sort of on the first day, the second day, the third day. So on the 12th day of wellness, my best self gave to me 12 minutes meditating, 11 burpees, 10,000 steps, 9 friendly smiles, 8 hours of sleep, 7 minutes exercising, 6 ways of stretching, 5 compliments, 4 deep breaths, 3 servings of fruit, 2-minute plank, and an attitude of gratitude that's free. So trying to help our teachers and our faculty and staff to be well this holiday season, take care of themselves as well.
Sounds really good.
It does, right? You want a copy?
Sign me up.
I'll give out copies.
I need
yeah.
a copy.
Put you in the raffle.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And our next meeting is a week from tonight. We'll have our budget workshop. And we start a little bit early with the Board of Ed, and the formal meeting will start at 7, but welcome to come early and have a little snack before we go.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Penny? Dan? All in favor? All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.